Hello, welcome to the Capitol Report on NTD Television. I'm Steve Lance. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen testifying before the Senate. The hearing was meant to be about President Biden's budget proposal, but many senators also raising concerns about the recent bank collapse. NTD's Jason Perry has that story.
The full faith and credit of the United States.
Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen testified on Thursday before the Senate Finance Committee. The purpose was for her to answer questions about President Biden's budget proposal. But the hearing was overshadowed by the recent collapse of Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank. Yellen explained how the government responded.
First, we worked with the Federal Reserve and FDIC to protect all depositors of the two failed banks. On Monday morning, customers were able to access all of the money in their deposit accounts so they could make payroll and pay the bills.
And she added this.
I can reassure the members of the committee that our banking system is sound and that Americans can feel confident that their deposits will be there when they need them.
Silicon Valley Bank collapsed after depositors rushed to withdraw their money all around the same time, which is also known as a bank run. This reportedly happened after information was shared online about the bank's financial health during a time of slow growth in the tech sector, its main customer base. And after a similar run on New York-based Signature Bank, state regulators ordered it to shut down too. The government then provided money to make sure both of the bank's customers could access their money.
If you're in a big bank.
Senator James Lankford said the government's actions could cause more people to move to larger banks.
That's certainly not something that we're encouraging.
That is happening right now.
That is happening because depositors are concerned about the bank failures that have happened and whether or not other banks could also
No, it's happening because you're fully insured no matter what the amount is. If you're in a big bank, you're not fully insured if you're in a community bank.
Well, you're not fully insured.
The next bank that was reportedly expected to fall was First Republic after its shares recently dropped by about 70%. But several large banks stepped in on Thursday and provided First Republic with $30 billion in deposits, according to a statement from those banks. Jason Perry, NTD News.
And joining us next is Peter Schiff, the chief economist at Euro-Pacific Asset Management. He'll break down the factors behind the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank and some of the implications. Peter Schiff, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure.
Peter, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen today testifying on the Hill, essentially saying in light of turbulence in the banking sector that the banking system's fine. I want to play you a soundbite here.
I can reassure the members of the committee that our banking system is sound and that Americans can feel confident that their deposits will be there when they need them.
Peter, should we feel confident in our banking system right now?
Not at all. In fact, that comment is as accurate as her earlier comments that inflation was transitory, or the comments back in the days of leading up to the 2008 financial crisis, when her and everybody else at the Fed was saying that not to worry about subprime because it was contained. You know, thanks to Janet Yellen, particularly what she did as Fed chair. You know, she kept interest rates at zero for practically her entire term as Fed chairman. That's the reason that we had such a big bubble, those low interest rates and quantitative easing, and she was part of that. That's why all these banks are loaded up with now underwater long-term treasuries and mortgage-backed securities. So the banking system is a house of cards. It couldn't be less sound, and partially Janet Yellen is to blame for the current state of affairs.
Peter, we're really grateful for your analysis because you often give us a lot more background and context. When it comes to the nearly 0.5% decrease in the CPI, what does that actually tell you about the state of the economy?
Well, as I said, the economy is literally a house of cards. I mean, it's imploding, but inflation is going to get much worse because the Fed has already returned to quantitative easing. Whether they admit it or not, the way they are bailing out all the banks is by printing new money and adding it into the economy and taking on mortgages and government debt onto their already bloated balance sheet. So the Fed's balance sheet is going to go up, the money supply is going to go up, and that means consumer prices are going to go way up. And in fact, when President Biden is trying to tell everybody that they're not going to have to pay the costs of the bank bailout, he's lying. They're going to pay the cost through higher prices. And when he says that everybody's bank account is now safe, it's not. It's in more danger than ever before because your bank account is going to be eroded in value due to inflation. So even if your bank doesn't fail and you don't lose your money is going to lose its value.
Peter, I want to get your assessment of the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank and basically how it factors into the overall economy, what concerns you have, and ultimately, do you see any relation or correlation to cryptocurrency in any of this?
Well, first of all, the reason that the bank failed was because of the artificially low interest rate and QE environment that the bank operated in for a decade. It was the Federal Reserve that created all these distortions by its artificial suppression of interest rates, and it caused financial institutions to take incredible risk in order to get a return. And also, the U.S. government, through banking regulations, actually encouraged these banks, through favorable accounting, to load up on treasuries and mortgages because they didn't take a haircut on those assets like they would for other assets, nor were they required to mark them to market. So as they were losing value, they pretended they had no losses. And so this whole thing was a byproduct of bad monetary and fiscal policy. Cryptocurrency actually got started in response to the 2008 financial crisis and the fear that all the money printing would lead to inflation, which of course it has, and it's only getting started. But I think the people who turn to Bitcoin and other cryptos as an alternative to fiat currencies or as a store of value or inflation hedge, they were mistaken. They got suckered into a bubble. They bought into fool's gold. And I think there's a lot of money that's going to be lost in that space. And a lot of companies that are operating in crypto and blockchain are going to lose a lot of money. Unfortunately for Silicon Valley Bank, they were banking a lot of those companies. And so that was also another problem that they encountered. And other banks that have made loans to crypto-related companies and other tech companies for that matter, these loans are going to go bad because these companies have no profits. In fact, they have huge losses.
Peter Schiff, as always, appreciate your insights.
Oh, my pleasure.
TikTok could be banned here in the United States. That's what the Biden administration is warning if the platform's Chinese owners refuse to give up their share. NTD's Iris Tao has the latest from the White House.
A drastic shift in the White House's stance towards TikTok. A spokesperson for the popular app tells Reuters that the Biden administration is now threatening that the platform could face a nationwide ban if its Chinese parent company does not give up its shares. The White House on Thursday would not confirm such reports, but reiterated President Biden's concerns over the app.
We have expressed concerns over China's potential use of software platforms that could endanger or threaten America's safety and their national security. So that is the president's concern. That is why we have called on Congress to take action.
The Biden administration has been negotiating with the app for 2 years now, trying to reach a solution over data security. But this marks the first time we've heard of a threat of an outright ban. And it comes as the White House is now openly endorsing a bipartisan legislation that could be used to ban the app.
We're not going to get ahead of the review, but certainly we, again, support this bipartisan legislation that we're coming.
And TikTok, meanwhile, pushes back by saying that a forced sale will not solve the problem. And all eyes will be on Capitol Hill next week as TikTok's CEO is scheduled to testify and face grilling by lawmakers from both sides of the aisle. On another front, customs data obtained by Politico shows Chinese companies are selling rifles and body armor to Russia. In response, White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby tells the Epoch Times that China is still considering sending lethal aid to Russia.
Well, we don't think that China has taken lethal assistance off the table, but we haven't seen, firm confirmation that they're moving in that direction.
The U.S. and Western allies have repeatedly warned Beijing against doing that. Reporting from the White House, Iris Tao, NTD News.
Poland now saying it will send fighter jets to Ukraine. That's after a Russian jet collided with an American drone over the Black Sea.
Poland's President Andrzej Duda on Thursday announced the country's plans to send fighter jets to Ukraine. This would make Poland the first NATO member to send warplanes to Ukraine. Duda apparently plans on sending older planes made during the Soviet era. Ukraine has often said the country hopes for newer American planes. However, White House spokesman John Kirby on Thursday said the U.S. still doesn't plan to send jets to Ukraine. Just last month, Putin warned of serious consequences for the entire world if the UK were to send planes to Ukraine. On Thursday, a reporter asked what the Biden administration thinks about possible Russian retaliation after Poland's decision.
It's a sovereign decision. It is their decision to make. But you have seen a strong alliance, a strong partners, a strong West. NATO has come together.
She added that the Biden administration was briefed about Poland's plans before President Duda announced them. Meanwhile, the U.S. is now condemning Russia's attacks on the American drone that crashed into the Baltic Sea. The Pentagon on Thursday released video of a Russian jet dumping fuel on the drone in international airspace.
The actions by Russian pilots in international airspace were reckless and dangerous. We have raised those concerns directly with Russian leadership, and we will continue to exercise our rights in international airspace. Clearly, we do not seek armed conflicts with Russia. We maintain direct lines of communication for reasons like this to minimize risk of escalation.
The Pentagon says it's very unlikely that Russia will be able to recover the wreckage, which is under thousands of feet of water. As for the Polish jets, they are reportedly scheduled to arrive in Ukraine in the coming days. Reporting by Ariane Pazdar, NTD News.
Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.